This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You're watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
All right, everyone, hope you're all doing fantastic. Please click that subscribe button. It's free. No reason to not do it. Now, Andy Ruiz Jr., of course, he's the current unified heavyweight champion of the world after defeating Anthony Joshua back in June at Madison Square Garden in New York. And, of course, the rematch will be on December the 7th in Saudi Arabia. And, of course, there's lots of hoo-ha. Should the fight be happening there? Shouldn't it be happening there? Etc., etc., okay? All that aside. Okay, so currently, Andy Ruiz Jr., he got the win. A lot of people considered it a shock. For me, as I said even before the fight, this will be competitive, and his style is very, very difficult for Anthony Joshua, but not a style that he can't overcome, and I believe Joshua will get the win in the rematch in Saudi Arabia, as I said, on December the 7th. So currently, Andy Ruiz Jr., he's the heavyweight champion of the world, holding the WBA, WBO, IBF and IBO titles until, at a minimum, December the 7th. The belts will be up in the air, and whoever wins will then walk out with the belts. Will Andy Ruiz Jr. walk out as not only the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world, but everything that he does, as long as he's got the belts, is setting new records? So if he defeats Joshua again, he becomes the first Mexican to not only win the belts, but defend the belts as well. Okay, so he's setting records as he's going along. If Anthony Joshua gets the belts again, which I'll say it again, I believe he will, then he'll become a two-time heavyweight champion of the world. Again, he's in a very select few of who have achieved that in the history of heavyweight boxing. So this fight is very, very important, okay? Now, Andy Ruiz Jr., he believes that Anthony Joshua doesn't actually want the rematch. In fact, he's being forced into this rematch. And Andy Ruiz Jr.'s reasoning being, and again, I'll put it in the description box as always to back up what it is I'm talking about, is the fact that he's saying that he become heavyweight champion on his 16th fight, and rather than do what all other heavyweights have done around that stage, which is gradually put together your skill set, learn on the job as you like, and go through the gears against opposition that you should really win against. And then ultimately, when you challenge for a title, that's when you get the world titles, and then you keep them and defend them for a long time, because you should be, not far off at least, the complete fighter. But Joshua, 16 fights in, and he's had a target on his back ever since he won that belt against Charles Martin, the IBF. Then, of course, he defended it against undefeated, of course, Dominic Brazil, and then Vladimir Klitschko, and then he got another one against Joseph Parker, and so on and so on, okay? So he's got a very, very good resume, but the fact is that he's been having to learn the trinkets or the skill sets and certain things in the gym, and he's having to put it against those who are ranked the top in the world, if that makes sense. And that's pretty much what Andy Ruiz Jr. is saying, that Joshua doesn't want that. Now, I disagree with Andy Ruiz Jr. purely because Anthony Joshua, as we know, he's taken a loss. And for Anthony Joshua, every fight is a learning curve, which is why he doesn't really talk about when he wins and what it is that he's done, and he looks back and reflects and so on, and he doesn't. It's always a case of what's next, what is it that I've got to improve on. So a loss, a win, to him, it isn't too far apart. Don't get me wrong, he's going to be very upset that he lost. And this is going to be an extra motivation for him to defeat the man who defeated him and get the world heavyweight titles back again. Okay? Now, ultimately, let's be honest, Joshua doesn't need a world title to be relevant in heavyweight boxing. He doesn't need it, okay? Much like Tyson Fury doesn't need it. Dillian Whyte doesn't need it. In some ways, Joseph Parker doesn't need it, okay? But it's always good to have, and it does add that little bit of spice for those who do value the titles. But for me, I think Anthony Joshua, he wants to take this rematch because I believe he has the mindset, which I believe all fighters should have, which is if you take a loss to somebody, don't just accept it, have a rematch with that person, as and when you can, and try and get that victory. Wouldn't it be good to end your career knowing, like Lennox Lewis, for example, he took 2 losses and a draw, and he avenged both those losses and the draw by getting the win. So he retired not only as the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, holding 3 belts, but he can then say, I have defeated every man that I've ever stepped foot in the ring with as a professional fighter. And that's what I believe all fighters should want to do, and I believe that's what Joshua wants to do. So there's no better time than to have the rematch, because the titles are also on the line as well as an added bonus. Yes, he's going to Saudi Arabia. Some people are not happy about it due to the human rights things, but again, that's not Joshua's fault or problem. Okay, fact is he's getting paid and he's got an opportunity to get these belts back again, to become a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. Why wouldn't you do it? All right? Because if he didn't do it, and he did go back down the levels and learn his craft the proper way, then how long is it going to be until he gets a world title fight? Because Andy Ruiz Jr. is now part of the PBC. Wilder, who holds the other one title of undisputed, if you like, then the PBC have got all the belts, and no non-PBC fighters are really going to get a look in. So Joshua will be frozen out, okay? So while he's got this rematch clause, he's going to insist on it. And listen, he's going to be very, very confident of going into that rematch and getting the win. And I believe he will get the win, and I believe that he will do it in pretty dramatic fashion. Okay, he ain't going to be mucking about in this one. He isn't going to do stupid things or anything. If anything, he may do it boring. Okay, he may just box his way to a 12-round unanimous decision. He may do that, but ultimately he may just go in for the kill. I believe that he may just go in for the kill. But maybe Andy Ruiz Jr.'s style is all wrong for him. I did say before the fight that people are overlooking Andy Ruiz Jr., but I knew Andy Ruiz Jr. very well, as many of you guys know, and his punch output is phenomenal. Joshua don't like shorter guys either, okay? You put a tall guy in there with him, Joshua's going to handle himself a whole lot better. Anyway, all that aside, so for me, Anthony Joshua does want the rematch. He's not being forced into taking a rematch. Ultimately, he's the boss. Okay, if he didn't really want that rematch, he wouldn't take it. He wants to erase that loss off his record, metaphorically speaking, of course. I mean, listen, it'll always be there. But he wants to be able to say, after Andy Ruiz Jr., okay, I took a loss, but I got back on the horse and I beat the guy who beat me. And that's going to be his message there on after, of course. And going forward as well, it puts him in line to become the first 4-belt heavyweight unified, undisputed champion of the world. As I said before, Lennox Lewis had 3 belts for undisputed. Now you need 4 because the WBO is relevant in today's era. So Joshua, he wants to become the first undisputed. If he doesn't, then it's going to be likely between Wilder and Andy Ruiz Jr. These guys will quickly make that undisputed fight, and then one of these guys will become the first. Joshua don't want that. Is it egotistical? Maybe, sure, but I think at a fighter at the elite level, you have to be egotistical. You have to be. Anyway, listen, that's my thoughts. I think Andy Ruiz Jr. is wrong. I mean, what he's saying does make some sense, of course. If he did go back down the levels and learn his craft properly, when he comes out the other end, he'll be a far better fighter for sure. But listen, Anthony Joshua can still beat anybody on any given day. And let's not rule out the fact that he could still be undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It took a bit of a bump in the road. Who doesn't? Everyone loses. Tyson Fury's been on the floor, 4 or 5 times now? Deontay Wilder's been wobbled and out on his feet by Luis Ortiz. Got Bambi legs against Eric Molina. Got put on his backside against Harold Scorniez. It happens, you know. Everyone will take a loss. In truth, Deontay Wilder has a loss on his record. It's just that it's been moved to a draw and he got gifted with it. So again, if you're going to be critical, at least be honest about things. So anyway, listen, that's my thoughts. As I said, article in the description box. Go give it a read for yourself. Come to your own thoughts, your own conclusions. As always, drop them below, click the thumbs up, and of course, subscribe. Very important that you subscribe. Catch you all on the next one.